Hello. We are going to read Chapter 11 of Becoming Naomi Leon by Pam Munoz Ryan. So let's take a deep breath in and exhale. And let's begin. Chapter 11, A Flight of Swallows. Out of breath, Owen and I spilled into Fabiola's living room. She and Graham looked up from the wedding gown that they were stuffing with tissue and wrapping in plastic. "What's happened?" asked Graham. I burst into tears, and Owen talked so fast I could barely understand him.
"She's coming, and she's going to take Naomi away, and she hit Naomi, and she's going to hurt you."
Graham hurried to me and examined my cheek, her mouth set in a straight line, and something fierce building in her eyes. "You and Owen go out to the shed. Send Bernardo in here. You stay there and you don't come out until I get you." As we ran to the shed, I heard Scylla's muffled voice calling from the other side of the dark trees. "Naomi!" In the shed, Bernardo stood in a half circle of wood shavings from the plank he had been planning. Owen's words tripped over each other when he explained about Scylla. Bernardo quickly turned off the dangling light bulb, and before he pulled the door shut on his way to the yard, he grabbed the biggest shovel. I could smell freshly shorn wood. I ran my fingers along the rippled aluminum wall.
"What's going to happen?"
whispered Owen. "I think she's going to come over and try to convince Graham to send me with her," I whispered back. I kept hearing Scylla's words.
"Something could happen to her at any time, as old as she is."
Softly, Owen said.
"Why doesn't Scylla want me too?"
My mind tumbled to think of some comfort words. "It's plain and clear she only wants me so I can be friends with Clive's daughter and she can get money from the state. So I'm nothing special." I touched my cheek and winced from the tenderness. I could hear Scylla saying that there was more where that came from. Owen thought on what I said for a minute. Even in the almost dark, I could see his round eyes intent on my face. He shook his head.
"I think she never wanted me when I was a baby, because I wasn't, like everyone else. And I think she doesn't want me now."
"But Graham wanted us, Owen, and our father. Those are good things. We are lucky for that." I scooted over close to him and put my arms around his shoulders while we waited. We heard Lulu's barking first. Owen and I carefully peeked through the window in the door. We could see Graham and Fabiola, who were now holding Lulu, and Bernardo by their side. The three stood shoulder to shoulder like a barricade. Scylla stood in front of them, so soft, almost cooing, that we couldn't hear her words, but Graham's voice carried in the crisp night air. "She's not going anywhere with you, and that is that." The cooing stopped and Scylla's voice fired up. "Clive told me you'd be like this. If you don't go along, all I have to do is show up with a police officer. You can't prove any legal rights to her. She'll have to go with me. Is that what you want? Me showing up with a police officer to take Naomi?" I held my stomach, thinking I might be sick. Would Graham have to let me go? "Scylla, I'd go to the end of the earth to protect that child. I'll go to court if that's what I have to do." Scylla laughed. The court would never deny custody to a natural parent. Clive told me all about it. There's not a judge that wouldn't give me my own child. You abandoned those children, said Graham. That will count for something. And there's another kettle of fish to consider. What about their father?
Him? What about him? He hasn't seen them in years. He doesn't care.
Scylla stumbled, then steadied herself.
Now, where is she?
Scylla, what makes you think I'd turn her over, especially with you in your condition? You're drinking, I can tell.
That does not concern you. Now, I'm saying it again. Clive, Naomi, and I are going to Las Vegas. Where is she?
Bernardo took a few steps towards Scylla, with the shovel pointed out. Scylla walked backwards slowly and waved a shaky finger at Graham. Fine, I'll be back with Clive to pick up Naomi on noon on Saturday. And I expect her bags to be packed. If she's not ready, I'm going straight to the police. I'm not going to forget you making problems for me and Clive. Naomi doesn't belong to you. She belongs to me. She is my daughter. Fabiola and Lulu spent the night with us in baby Beluga, but it was small comfort because I didn't sleep a straight 10 minutes. I had ideas of Scylla and Clive scooping me up at any moment, to the point I was more tired when I woke up Friday morning than when I had gone to bed the night before. It didn't matter. We didn't go to school anyway, which was fine by me. I stuck to Graham like an ivy plant on the side of a barn and glanced over my shoulder at the least little sound. That afternoon, Graham went with Fabiola to do private errands and said I couldn't come along. Owen and I stayed with Bernardo, and Lulu was close by as a guard dog. But even then, when one of the Grove workers knocked on the door, I ran to the kitchen and I started to cry. That night, Graham and Fabiola barely watched Wheel of Fortune. They had their heads together, talking quiet-like the whole time. When I crawled into bed, my body collapsed into the mattress, heavy and limp, like a half-full flour sack. It was a different kind of tired than I'd ever known in my whole life. Graham came to tuck me in, smiling. I had already asked her a dozen times, but I had to ask again. Are you sure Scylla's not coming for me tomorrow? Don't worry, said Graham. Tomorrow you are definitely not going to be with Scylla. But the police! Hush, said Graham. I have plans, Naomi, but you don't need to be concerned with them. Now, can you muster a tiny little smile for me? The last few days you've had a permanent wrinkled brow. I struggled to make my mouth turn up on the ends. Then I skipped into sleep. A regular sound like a clock rocked me in a deep, gentle fog, with no nightmares or dreams, just nothingness, over and over, mist and motion, mist and motion. I felt suspended in a hammock of sleep, swaying back and forth. When I did wake in the morning, I felt as peaceful as a kitten after a long nap until I blinked several times. Then the restfulness startled out of me. I sat up. Owen! Sleepy-eyed, Owen sat up and looked at me. We both grabbed the sides of our bed. The walls pitched and vibrated. An earthquake! Graham! I called, but there was no answer. I tried to think. What did they tell us in school? Stand in a doorway or a small bathroom. I struggled to get out of bed to help Owen. I pulled him along behind me and tried to balance with one hand against the trailer wall, but I could hardly stay straight. The shaking kept up a steady pace. "Graham!" I called again. I stumbled down the narrow hallway with Owen. For a second, I was afraid to look into the living room kitchen. I'd seen those earthquake movies and the reports on television, nothing left on the walls. Cupboards open and dishes smashed on the floor. I leaned forward and peeked into the room. Graham and Fabiola sat at the drop-down table drinking coffee. Out the window behind them, cars sprinted by in the opposite direction. It wasn't an earthquake. Baby Beluga was moving down the highway? Through the window in the front of the trailer, I could see Bernardo's truck towing us with his trailer hitch. Lulu was perched next to his shoulder on the top of the seat, looking out the back windshield at us, panting. Luggage and boxes snuggled tight in the truck bed, tied in with rope. My eyes shifted to the counters inside Baby Beluga. They were stacked with boxes of groceries, bottled water, and a 24-pack of Nature's Pure White bar soap, and an economy box of transparent tape. I'd never seen Owen so happy. He jumped up and down the best he could, seeing how we were in a moving vehicle. He was giggling so hard, he finally had to sit on the floor.
"Can Lulu ride back here with us?"
he asked, between fits of clapping. "No," said Graham. "We are all moving into the safety of the truck as soon as Bernardo stops." "Graham," I said, still holding on to the side of the trailer for balance. "Naomi, in my wildest dreams, I never thought I'd uproot Baby Beluga. I told Scylla I'd go to the end of the earth to protect you, and I am fulfilling that prophecy. Besides, I always said you and Owen should know your Mexican history, so we're taking a holiday vacation to Mexico." "To Osaka," said Fabiola, "to see our family, and for La Navidad Christmas," Fabiola said, as if it was something we had planned, like a regular event on the calendar that we never missed. She held up a big driving map of Mexico. A red marker lined our route. "Lemon Tree is close to here," she said, and pointed near Tijuana, which bordered San Diego. Then she unfolded the map full size. "And we are going here." Fabiola tapped her finger on a state in Mexico that was almost near Central America. We might as well be driving to New York City, for as far as we were headed. I took a step closer. Across the state were the letters OAXACA. Pointing at them, I asked, "What does that mean?" Fabiola laughed. "It is the name of the state. It is pronounced Oaxaca. And here, at the star, is Oaxaca City, the capital of the state and the town where our family lives." They are very excited that we are coming. We have not seen them in too many years.
"But what about school?"
asked Owen. "Your winter break would have started the week after next anyway. And you don't start up again until January 8th. You're just missing an extra 2 weeks," said Graham.
"Yippee!"
cried Owen. "I already called and left messages for your teachers," said Graham. "Mrs. Maloney's going to collect our mail and water the plants and feed Fabiola's chickens." I wish I could have told Blanca that we were leaving. She would have loved to know that I was on my way to Mexico. What if her mom got promoted to another value city before we got back? Would I see her again? I crossed the trailer and scooted next to Graham. She put her arm around me. I looked out the window at the brown hills. "We are on the lam," said Graham, "and for good reason. Yesterday I met a nice young lady lawyer who had plenty to tell me. I got temporary guardianship of you and Owen. See this folder?" Graham held up a thick envelope. "I've got your birth certificates and my notarized papers right here." Graham glanced at Fabiola as if there was a secret passing between them. "We have a court hearing the day before you go back to school, January 7th. Come to find out, we have free legal aid office for folks like me right in Lemon Tree. And we have Clive to thank for giving me the idea. I just wish I knew such a thing sooner." "Does Scylla know?" "She will as soon as she gets the notice. She's going to pitch a fit when she finds out. Naomi, I am taking a chance by going to court and letting a judge decide on us. And I could be opening another can of worms, but I do not see any other way." I scrunched up my forehead. "But what if the judge says—" "Don't even think of that," said Graham. "The lawyer said the court would appoint a mediator, someone who isn't for one side or the other, to interview everyone involved, which means we will all get to answer. And on top of that, we're going to try to find your father and ask him to help us. The lawyer said the judge would weigh his wishes very heavily. He still has rights to you. If I can convince him to write a letter on our behalf, well, he's our ticket, Naomi, and we are going to find him. We just have to believe it." Her voice dwindled into a sigh. I wanted to believe it. I did. "Do you know where our father lives?" "The last I knew, he lived near Puerto Escondido, near the ocean. The only thing I knew for sure is that he comes to Oaxaca City every year for a few days before Christmas for that radish carving festival on the 23rd. What if he won't help us?" "Santiago was always a good man, kind man," said Graham. "I have to believe that he hasn't changed and that he wants the best for you. I am locked on the prospect of finding him." Sitting so close I could see dark puddles in the withering skin beneath Graham's eyes. Her hair had not been fluffed, and she looked smaller and older and more tired than I ever remembered. I suddenly wanted to scoop her up and rock her like a baby. I looked at Fabiola studying the map, and I could see the back of Bernardo's head in the truck. I knew they hadn't been planning this trip. I turned to the window. 100 birds sat on a telephone line. And in one instant, they released and lifted with stubborn determination, trailing across the sky towards somewhere. I patted Graham's hand, then reached across the table for my notebook. Turning to a clean page, I wrote 100 times, "We'll find him, we'll find him, we'll find him." A passel of today's. Mexico paraded outside the cab of Bernardo's truck, but at times the scenery blurred and my mind clouded with all that had happened. The night when Scylla waltzed into baby Beluga, the perfect M of her lips, me sitting on the floor while she braided my hair, Owen's face when he saw the bike and my new clothes. My thoughts were also smudged with Thanksgiving Day, teachers' conferences, children's hospital, and the sting of Scylla's fury. Now I was chasing a father who was nothing more than a wisp of smoke floating in the air, someone I didn't know for sure I would ever really touch. Even though my life was a fog of the good and the bad, one thing was clear as a vinegar-shined window in my mind. I belonged with Graham and Owen. I wanted no part of living with Scylla, Clive, and Sapphire. If finding my father was my only hope, then I was going to latch on to every positive, forward-thinking, universe-tilting notion to fulfill that prophecy. I just wished I didn't have all of Mexico standing between me and a sunshiny day. I'll see you next chapter.